Hello, welcome back to A Moment in Time with Taylor. We are here with we are here with book review number 2 of the day. This book is Money, Master the Game: 7 Simple Steps to Financial Freedom by Tony Robbins. So whatever you think about Tony Robbins, this was a great book. I give this book probably 5 stars. I'm probably going to give this one 5 stars. 4 stars or 5 stars? At least 4. It's a little bit long. If you're not really an avid reader, books like this can be very intimidating and you can feel overwhelmed, and they could take you a really long time to get through if you get through them at all. My tip is to just, if you're reading about something that's really interesting and really important to you, then read it fully. If it's something that's kind of like filler content, which you'll find in a lot of books, you can kind of skim it and power through it very, very quickly. So for instance, in this book, really like the last third of the book is basically a bunch of interviews that he did with these mega financial wealthy moguls. And that's great, and you can read that stuff as much as you want to, but especially if a certain name catches your eye, but for the most part, you can kind of skim through that. Now, I want to give whoever, whether it was Tony or his editor or publisher, whoever actually went through, probably the editor, and actually bolded some of the most important concepts throughout this book. So pretty much any page you turn to, this is just a random page that I chose, you can see that right here is bolded. I don't think anything on this page is bolded at all. So it kind of shows you can kind of go through the book and read like the chapter title, the bolded areas. There's a lot of quotes throughout here as well if you're interested in that. There's the headings for the different subjects, there's charts, there's graphs, and it's really easy to read this book without having to read every single word. There's tons of filler content, and another example of filler content is like anecdotal information. So an anecdote is just basically an example. So you say, hey, it's really important to invest, and then you give an example of Susie, who wasn't investing and, ended up having to work all the way through until she was 80 years old and died, basically, and was never able to get ahead and lived paycheck to paycheck, and even worse, and had mountains of debt and just really didn't do so well. And then you have an example of Linda, who was investing from a very young age, and the different kind of outcomes that they had and why. These are 2 examples. You don't necessarily, as long as you understand the concept and you accept it as like, okay, yes, I understand the idea of compounding and the importance of investing, so therefore I don't need to read about Susie and Linda because I get it, right? I understand why it's important, so I don't need to read examples of it. Examples and anecdotal evidence can be very powerful and very helpful if you don't understand why, and you can read that as much as you want to. But yeah, don't let the size of this book intimidate you. It's really jam-packed full with lots of information. You can go back and read it multiple times. You can dog ear it. I actually have some dog ears in here for asset allocation, which from my takeaway from the number 1 most important concept that I took personally from this book is the importance of asset allocation. So in your investment portfolio, hey, someone just subbed to my channel on Twitch. Thank you, Cillian, for subscribing. Is that Silly one? Silly Un? I'm not sure. That was very nice. Was not expecting that. Anyway, so the asset allocation, it's your investment portfolio and what percentage of your investment portfolio is invested into what types of assets. And readjusting and rebalancing that portfolio to meet your plan probably about once a year seems to be sufficient for most people. So maybe it's a simple breakdown of 80% stocks, 20% bonds, or maybe you have precious metals in there, or maybe you have some different types of, maybe some like RITs, real estate investment trusts investments. And there's a lot of different options, and he goes into all of those, all the different kinds of bonds and all the different types of stocks and securities, and you can find so much information in here. But that was my main takeaway, because I was already actively investing when I found this book. And I'd already been researching and learning and reading about investing for a while, so a lot of it, especially in the beginning, was pretty gloss overable, really good information if you're a newbie, for sure. Written very well, very clearly, really, really, really a well put together book, absolutely. But for me, that was my weak part. I had the vast majority, like 90% of my portfolio was stocks. And I realized that even though it's really, really, really difficult to buy bonds right now for me, I don't have any. And it's all of these massively wealthy people all around the world say that you should have some type of investment in bonds. So I did get a little bit of, I think like 2% of my portfolio now is in bonds. But it's better than 0%. And then I put a little bit into a mortgage RIT. And I think that was it, just the bonds and the RIT, I believe. I actually have my investment portfolio. Let me check. Because I already had some precious metals. Yep, so I just added bonds and a mortgage RIT. So I diversified a little bit, and I was not diversified before almost at all. So it was really nice to go in and kind of explore that and research that and learn that and change my portfolio a little bit based on comparing the different portfolios. He gives you different portfolio breakdown recommendations from different people that are experts in the field. So I compared this to the Financial Freedom book that I love by Grant Sabatier, and I found a balance that works for me. For you, it's going to be different, but just to give you an idea of what mine was, I closed it, hang on. My ideal asset allocation is 10% metals, 10% bonds, 10% other, which is basically RITs or intermediate bonds, just kind of depending, but mostly going to be RITs, and then 70% stocks. So that works for me. You'll find something that works for you and just make sure that you are rebalancing that portfolio once a year. So if your stocks are doing really, really, really good, you might want to sell some of those off and move into your other asset classes to keep your percentages clear. Because if you have a clear, concrete plan, it makes it a lot easier to do things that can be emotional. Sometimes when you see something going up and up and up and up, you don't want to sell it, you don't want to balance, but you can look back and say, this was my plan, I'm just sticking to my plan and executing that. Some people might have to actually pay an investment manager or asset manager to actually do that for them. That's, to me, very risky, and it's like, it's more overhead, right? So you want to avoid fees, you want to avoid taxes. He talks about different ways that you can do that in here, things to look out for, good tax shelters like Roth, anything with the name Roth on it is pretty much going to be like a tax shelter. So you have Roth IRA, you have Roth 401ks. I learned about solo 401ks because of this. I learned about some contribution plans for college, which didn't really none of them were a good fit for me because I'm actively taking classes as it is. But if you have kids and you're looking for investment vehicles for their college fund, there's options for that. I think it's the 529 plan, something like that. Really, really great info in here. It's jam-packed. I mean, I can't even begin to touch on most of the stuff in here, but that's the general idea. It was a really good book if you want to learn about investment and wealth, investments in particular. Definitely recommend this one. I also learned about annuities, which was kind of an interesting concept where you pay a certain amount up front, and then the exchange is that they will pay you a fixed amount in your later years. So it's basically, annuities are basically vehicles that are built to, sorry, don't mind me. Sorry. So they're basically vehicles for people who think that they're going to outlive their retirements. So if you're looking at your investments and kind of just running average returns and looking at your savings and whatever you'll have and kind of forecasting into the future, and you say, okay, well, my money, like say I retire at 65 and then I should have enough to get me through to age 80. Well, what if I live past 80? People are living past 80 more and more. What if I live to be 100? That's 20 years. And now I'm 80, so I'm not going to all of a sudden start like working. So, or whatever it is that you use to generate your income. So obviously having passive income streams that continue to flow during those times is great. If you run your own businesses, there's a lot of different options for that. But annuities are one of the options where you basically pay a certain amount up front and then you will get paid in certain amounts every year. I think it's like every month or probably like once a month checks that you get from those years from 80 to 100 or 80 on. Basically, it's not until 100, it's from a certain age on. So you actually give them a certain amount of money and you say, hey, if I live to be X amount of years old, which you can pick something younger, you could pick 65. It's just going to be, you're not going to get as much money and you're going to have to put more money up front. So it's like, you kind of have to pick what's going to work best for you. It's not something that I chose to pursue at this point in my life, so we'll see. It also seems like it's with annuities, it's like a lump sum, like you give them like $100,000 now, and then you get like paid back on that later. So to me, that's not really my ideal choice. But I had never knew what annuities were before, so I learned that as well. And I think that's pretty much, and also bewaring mutual funds, which I've talked about before, but just beware of fees and money managers. And oh, there was, crap, let me see if I can figure this out fast enough for you guys, because we are live, so I can't edit this out. Okay, I think I got it. Bear with me. Fiduciary. A fiduciary is a legal standard adopted by a relatively small but growing segment of independent financial professionals who have abandoned their big box firms, relinquished their broker status, and made the decision to become a registered investment advisor. These professionals get paid for financial advice and, by law, must remove any potential conflicts of interest or at a minimum disclose them and put the client's needs above their own. So he talks about the importance of getting a fiduciary and making sure that the person who is managing your money is a certified or licensed, I don't know if it's a license or certificate or what, fiduciary. Or you can manage your own money, which is my ideal, what I like to do. So there's that. But yeah, so if you are going to be hiring a money manager, just making sure that they are a fiduciary. And I think that's about it for Money Master the Game by Tony Robbins. I hope you enjoyed this book review. Please give this video a like if it helped you in any way, and check out my other videos. I have a whole playlist of book reviews. I read mostly nonfiction. I love to read about money and wealth and business and psychology and parenting and all sorts of fun stuff, so I hope you'll check that out. I also am a full-time live streamer on other platforms where I go live playing video games, so you'll see some of those clips on my channel as well. And I recently started an OnlyFans channel, so you can check that out too if you want. I hope that I will see you soon. I will be streaming on Twitch tonight and OnlyFans if you want to check me out over there. Otherwise, you can comment on this video. This has been A Moment in Time with Taylor. Remember that you are worthy of being loved and feeling comfortable in your own skin. Carpe diem, seize the day. Exprime diem, squeeze the day. This has been A Moment in Time with Taylor. See you soon.